today, and they're going to be talking about the program and talking about really their sort of role in the program. And so we're going to do that. And then afterwards, we have a PowerPoint presentation that we're going to show you that goes into more detail concerning the program. As you can see, this is a small group. And so we want you to ask us questions. You're getting to talk to the decision makers. You're getting to talk to faculty. So we welcome any questions you have concerning the process. So with that said, I'm going to again welcome you. My name is Gregory Gale. I am the Director of Recruitment and Admissions for the College of Psychology, and we're going to be spending around an hour talking to you today. So let me first introduce you to our first speaker. Jane Lazarus is a member of the department, and so I'm going to have her talk first about sort of who she is and what she does.
Well, hello and welcome again. We're so glad to see you, and we're so glad you're interested in the field of school psychology. A little bit about me. I am a school psychologist and have been for many, many years. I'm originally from North Carolina, but moved to Florida and went to college and graduate school and became a school psychologist. I've worked in the public schools in the Broward County, which is the district that is surrounding Nova Southeastern, for many years. And right now I am serving as a site manager for the school psychology program on the main campus here. I love school psychology. I loved my job at working in the schools. And I think it's the kind of job where you get to do something different every day. You get to provide a service to children and youth and families and educators, and working in schools is just so interesting. So we're pleased that you're interested in our program, and the weather is definitely better here year round than in a gloomy winter place. So that's one thing to consider. And I look forward to finding out more specifics about what you want to know, and we'll be listening for your questions and invite you to listen to our program and ask us anything so that we can help you make a decision about whether it's a specialist or a doctoral degree, so that you can join us. Thank you. And the next person that is going to speak is Dr. Sarah Valley Gray.
Actually, my dog Charlie is the next person who's going to speak. And he's very excited that you guys are here with us and has a lot to tell you. So I have to say that my dog is very aware of our surroundings, and I'm very protected. So you may hear barks, and I'm glad that it's all being recorded for posterity. So welcome everyone. And it was so nice to hear where you all are coming from in terms of both geographic location as well as where you see yourself. And some of you are clear about the specialist versus the doc, and some are kind of struggling with that. And so I hope we get a few minutes to be able to chat about the differences. And I also get the sense that some of you are going to be applying to our Clearwater campus, and that's actually where I'm headed out on Friday. So we can talk a little bit more about that. But I direct the doctoral program in school psych, although I have worked very closely with the specialist program and really worked with our then associate dean, who's now our dean, to develop the specialist program. So both are near and dear to my heart. And I currently teach the courses in cognitive assessment that all students take. I teach on the main campus, that course. And then I also teach the counseling theories course where I, as I mentioned before, I'm heading out to Clearwater. I teach it both on the main campus to both specialist and doc students, as well as students at our Clearwater Tampa Bay site. So school psych program has been around for 20 years. The specialist program started in 2001, the doc program in 2011. So we're celebrating our anniversary this year for both programs. And it's a both of the programs are small and very cohesive. We have a cohort model for both the specialist and doc programs, and it really allows for our students to get to know each other really very well. And there's a nice sense of support around that, as well as our faculty members who really look to try to find opportunities for our students to be as successful as we can. So I am going to turn this over to Dr. Scheinberg, who's going to sing for us.
No.
In Spanish.
we want people to stay here, not leave. No singing for me.
No singing. Okay.
I can talk Spanish if you want, but no.
Okay.
Welcome everyone again. And at first I want to second both what you heard before, both from Jane and from Dr. Valley Gray. First of all, in terms of the profession itself, and also in terms of the program. And as Dr. Valley Gray said, this program, both the specialist and the doctoral, are very unique in the sense of the cohort model and also the support that students get, that I think is very unique at the graduate level, that you are really, that the faculty really cares and everyone wants for the students to be successful. So there's a lot of supports along the way to ensure that you're finding your path and that you're being successful, and that the program is what you hope it will be. In terms of my role, I teach in both the doctoral and the specialist program. And actually, I just taught in the Tampa program as well, because I teach the developmental classes. So for the doc students, I teach as part of the first year sequence of courses. And then for the specialists, I taught that class is in a weekend format. And I'm sure, I don't know if today they're gonna hear more about that format later on, but that's more like a hybrid format where you do some components online and some components in person. So the in-person component is like a full weekend class. So I teach that both for the specialists in Fort Lauderdale and in Tampa. And I also teach a class that is everyone's favorite class, which is the research methods class.
No.
And that class is both for specialists and doctoral students. So I try to make that class as engaging and as practical and applied as possible, because I know most people, when they hear research classes and statistics, they get like, but we try to do it in a way that it makes a lot of sense in terms of being school psychologists and understanding and being able to hopefully produce, but also consume research in your practice. And I also teach the first year practicum course for the doctoral students. So I teach that class and I supervise the students. So as you can hear, I'm like very involved in the first year doctoral students. They see me probably more than they want to see me. But I also get to teach and interact with the specialist students. So welcome.
Thank you so much. And so we do have one other faculty member who will be joining us later in our presentation. However, I'm going to proceed. So I'm going to be sharing a PowerPoint with you. So hopefully you're seeing my pictures on the Riviera right now. Yes? No? No? Okay. So you're seeing my PowerPoint. So let me tell you what I'm going to do. So first, we've just had our speakers, and so they're going to be helping me through this presentation. So the following information will be shared with you. I'm going to be talking about our accreditation. We're going to talk about the outlook for this particular area. We're going to talk about the curriculum, the format, our faculty. We're going to highlight some of our faculty, the location, and we'll also talk about the deadline day. Now, this is Zoom. This is a very small group. And so again, please feel free, if you have any questions, to unmute yourself and ask the question, or if you feel more comfortable, you can use the raise hand feature, or you can use the chat feature to ask your questions. And what I'll try to do is stop throughout our presentation to answer those questions. So are we good? Thumbs up? Awesome, good. So let's talk about this field. Now, school psychology, as you can see on the slide, is an area in high demand. Essentially, as it says, our educational system urgently needs school psychologists. And for a variety of reasons, the awareness of mental health within our K through 12 system, the emphasis that society and governments are putting on mental health, and the fact that we know it's very important for us to recognize that this is a factor in terms of students' development. And because of mandates across this nation, there is a national shortage of qualified experts in this field. And so we'll talk more about this in our presentation, but this is a position that has a very strong sort of trajectory in terms of employment. In terms of our accreditation, we're going to talk about both our specialist degree, and I'm assuming we all know what a specialist degree is. If we don't, we'll talk about that momentarily, as well as our doctoral degree. So our specialist degree is approved by the Florida Department of Education. Both our specialist and our doctoral program holds designation by the National Association of School Psychologists. And we are thrilled and excited. Our doctoral program in school psychology is accredited by the Commission on Accreditation of the American Psychological Association. In fact, this year, we are reaccredited in that program for an additional 10 years. So an amazing program. Both curricula are designed to be consistent with Florida state law concerning licensure requirements, and the doctoral curriculum is designed to be consistent with Florida statutes as in terms of licensure. And again, we think this is very important because this is essentially telling you about the quality of the curriculum. So who are school psychologists? So I'm going to read some information from you, but I think our faculty as well will chime in terms of a school psychologist. So school psychologists are part of the fabric of our system. They are very important because they support the student's ability to be successful within the school system. They have a background in obviously mental health, learning, behavior, and this is how I would describe it. They help children and youth succeed academically, socially, behaviorally, and emotionally. But they don't work by themselves. They partner with families and teachers and school administrators and other professionals to make sure that students have a safe, healthy, supportive learning environment. And so they are very important in terms of the success, the academic, behavioral, and mental health sort of success for students. And they work in a variety of settings. Our school psychologists could work in public schools, they could work in private schools, in preschools, they could work in district offices, they work at colleges and universities, they work at health centers, community, they also work in private practice. So they're not limited in terms of the areas that they could have employment. And so what exactly do they do? And so I'm actually going to be the teacher right now. I'm going to stop and I'm going to have Dr. Sarah Valley-Gray say, walk us through this slide.
Sorry, I had myself on mute because of Charlie. So this slide really covers some of the primary areas that school psychologists engage in within the public schools. One of the core areas within our curriculum, and one of the area that brought school psychology to the forefront is in the area of assessment. So school psychologists engage in lots of different kinds of assessment, both screening as well as comprehensive psychological assessment that's used to make decisions for placement purposes and for the way in which we deliver the curriculum. School psychologists also consult with lots of people, both parents as well as the educational stakeholders in schools. So they might go into a classroom and conduct an observation and share their findings with all the individuals who influence that child's functioning. The kinds of interventions that school psychologists engage in can range from general counseling in response to, an issue a child might be facing, as well as providing more structured interventions, and both from an academic and behavioral perspective, into the classroom. Then in the category of crisis intervention, oftentimes, sadly, given everything that goes on in our world, sometimes there might be a crisis that occurs in a school. It might be as a result of a tragedy. It might be because there's, there might be a loss, which in and of itself is a tragedy, but it might be a variety of different things that the children and the people within the school have to respond to. And school psychologists are really the leaders in the school in this area. And finally, in the area of advocacy, that's an area both in the categories of crisis intervention and advocacy, and in fact, all of those areas, I think those are really strengths of our program. One of the unique things that our program does in the area of advocacy is take students, and Dr. Cash will be here shortly, and he could speak to that more directly. But prior to COVID, we, some of our faculty and many of our students would travel to our state capital, which is Tallahassee, and our students would have the opportunity to meet with legislators and learn the skills necessary to advocate for school psychology, for students, for mental health issues and academic kinds of issues. So all of those are really things that we emphasize in our curriculum and are part of the day-to-day practice of school psychologists.
And Dr. Valley-Gray, a question for you. Many times individuals will contact us and say they're interested in being a school counselor. And could you tell us sort of the differences between a school counselor and a school psychologist?
Sure. So typically, and it depends on the district, school counselors oftentimes live in that building. School psychologists oftentimes are itinerant, which means they may have more than one school. But then some school psychologists do live in that building. It just depends on the priorities of that district, of that school, and so forth. But school counselors, oftentimes, they'll do counseling, and they might do like classroom interventions. They oftentimes do a lot of scheduling and administrative kinds of tasks to support that school's functioning. The training for a school counselor is typically 2 years. The training for school psych is usually 3 to 4 at the specialist level and 4 to 5 at the doc level. There's a very big difference when it comes to the assessment component, very big difference when it comes to the consultation component. So just different, both important and really essential to the system. But yeah, kind of different roles.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And so we'll proceed. So here's another sort of diagram showing you where school psychologists work. And we pull this from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So many of many graduates in the area work in the elementary and secondary school systems, and then in the offices of other health providers. So I started our conversation by saying this industry is really in high demand. Maybe I'll talk to Jane or have Jane talk about this momentarily, but essentially, due to a variety of factors, including mandates from really governments, et cetera, there is a critical need to house school psychologists in our society. And so Jane, talk to us about sort of what the critical need is and why it's important for us to have more individuals in this area.
Well, I think right now, there are a lot of mental health needs in the schools. And all the surrounding districts around Nova Southeastern and in Florida have job openings because the people stay in school psychology until they retire at a very old age. And so now it's a grading of school psychology and of school psychologists. And we need a lot of young people coming in to fill those positions. And depending on where you work all over the country, we know that from our National Association of School Psychologists, that there are needs for school psychologists all over. So if you get a degree in school psychology, there will be a job out there for you somewhere, and probably a lot of places to choose from. One thing that, because of the need for mental health services, we know that many children, if not most, the services provided by a school psychologist may be the only mental health services that they have access to because of the expense of private services. So what did I miss? Anything?
Well, the other thing I wanted to mention concerning the recommended ratio. So on the slide, you'll see that the recommended ratio is 1 clinician, 1 school psychologist to 500 to 700. Right now in the country, it's 1 to 1,300. And so that tells you the need in society. And also the fact that our students need the services of school psychologists. Again, governments, society is saying we need these individuals for student development, and we just don't have enough of them. So thanks, Jane. Again, this is just underlining the fact of the critical need, and NASP, which is the National Association of School Psychologists, recommends a ratio of 1 school psychologist per 5 to 700 in order to provide comprehensive school psychology services. And unfortunately, in some states, it's approaching 1 to 5,000. Which again is not a good ratio to have. So some other things that I wanted to talk about include the job outlook. So there's a critical need, and again, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, between now and really 2028, there's double-digit growth in terms of this industry. And so for psychologists, it's 14% growth in this particular area. So let's talk about our faculty, right? So we've talked about the industry, we've talked about the critical need for school psychologists. So this is the time when our faculty get to brag. So Dr. Scheinberg, we're gonna talk to you right now. Tell us about yourself in terms of what brought you to this particular area. You've talked about the courses that you've taught, but provide us some more information.
I think I'm a little unique in terms of the faculty. My background is not necessarily in school psychology. My background is more in developmental psychology, but I was always interested in, and I've always worked in the intersection between education and psychology, and always in applied settings. So school psychology is like the perfect home for me in that sense. Because I'm always interested in seeing things like in action, like how can you have a direct impact on children? How can you support the children in their natural setting, which are schools? And also, a lot of my experience in the past has been providing support to teachers, more in the earlier years, but a lot of like technical assistance and professional development. And again, how do you identify the needs of children? And how do you provide that environment that is going to foster their learning and their development? And how do we support teachers doing that? So for me, that's where I see that's what I like so much about school psychology, that you can see, the immediate impact, and also the assessment piece, like really getting to understand what's going on, right? Like I always say that it's kind of like detective work in a way. So you're trying to figure out children, you're trying to figure out their learning styles, and so that you can provide those strategies to promote their learning. So that's how I see it myself, and how that's also my fit into the program and the faculty.
Thank you. Dr. Valley-Gray.
Would you like me to tell them a little bit about all the faculty? Would that be helpful?
Sure.
Okay. So just to give you guys a quick overview so that you have a sense of all our different faculty. I'll start, Dr. Scheinberg just introduced herself, and I'll kind of go backwards. Dr. Cassidy is relatively new to our faculty. She has an expertise in working with children who come from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds, and has a research project going on right now where we're bringing in individuals who have expertise, in addition to her skills, some of the best known people in this area. We're working very closely with the school district of Palm Beach County to provide those lectures to their practitioners as well as our students. Dr. Wharton is working a lot with on a project where we're trying to develop a program to go into Jamaica so that children who are suspected of having an autism spectrum disorder can be evaluated by our students. So we're planning, once COVID stops, we're hoping to take a field trip there so that we can provide services and ensure that those students are getting their educational needs met. Dr. Poland, we talked a little bit earlier about crisis intervention. Dr. Poland is nationally known in this area, and our students who really all of our students take a course with him, excuse me, but he is the person that the schools call whenever there's a crisis. He's written numerous books and has many different papers, sorry, cat, that are in this area.
And if I could interject as well, Dr. Cash, I believe, is also joining us. So,
and he can introduce himself if you like.
Yes, exactly.
So should we allow him to talk, or should we give him a moment to get settled?
Moment to get settled.
Okay,
yes.
So let me tell you about the other people. So I'll start on the other end. Dr. Caproni works not only as part of our faculty, but he is the school psychologist for the University School, which is our on-campus pre-K through 12 setting. And our doc students do work for a year in our university school under his supervision. And he worked, in fact, Dr. Caproni and I worked together for many years in Miami-Dade County. He worked there for more years than me. I came here, but he was there for like 20, 25 years as a school psychologist in Dade County. Dr. Wagesbach is the director of our specialist program and has a very large grant through the Florida International University, where she, along with her colleagues and our students, go into summer camps and other agencies to prevent reading loss during the summer. So there's lots of opportunities for research, for experiences, for understanding the process of early intervention and screening of children to ensure they're getting what they need. And there's Dr. Cash next on the screen. Let me talk about myself real quick, and then we'll throw it over to Dr. Cash. So as I mentioned, I worked with Dr. Caproni in Miami-Dade County. I worked as a school psychologist for about 5 years. I evaluated children all over the district, serving as a consultant for kids who sustained a traumatic brain injury and for kids who were in the autism spectrum. And the crazy thing about that was in the early 90s, and those were two new categories of exceptionality within the public schools. Boy, have we come a long way. And I have spent most of my career here over the last 22 years, working to help prepare students for working in the schools. So.
Thank you. Dr. Cash, we are first thankful that you're here. So welcome. And then the second part of that is we would like you to introduce yourself to us so we know who you are. And I believe there's also a singing requirement.
Oh, don't even start. He'll take you up on it, unlike Dr. Scheinberg.
Well, I'll do the best I can. My name is Gene Cash, and I'm a professor here in the Department of Clinical and School Psychology in the College of Education at NSU. My training was in school psychology, at least, was at New York University a long time ago, last millennium, actually. And I got my PhD from New York University after having spent my internship at a community mental health center and in Catholic schools in Brooklyn, New York. Then I spent another year working at the community mental health center, got my doctorate, moved to Florida, and worked for 3 years as a school psychologist in the Broward County Public Schools. Then I got an administrative job, didn't particularly like it, but I stayed a year in the administrative job and went into private practice full-time. I was in private practice full-time, serving all kinds of cases for 23 years. And then I joined the faculty at Nova Southeastern at the urging of Dr. Valley Gray. And I have been here.
One email, that's what it took.
Yeah, this is my 19th year at the university, so you can tell that I'm way past retirement age, but I love what I do, so I keep going. Is there anything else that you would like me to say about myself? That's a lot.
Yes, Dr. Cash. Would you mind telling us some of the classes that you teach?
Sure, I'll be happy to. I have in the past taught integrated report. I'm not doing that right now, but that's one of the classes. I've also taught the applied skills classes to the specialist students in school psychology. I currently am teaching ethics and law for school psychologists, and I'm teaching advanced assessments and interventions to school psychology practicum students. So those are the main courses. Early on in my career, I taught some classes for the Masters in Mental Health students, and I also have taught counseling theories to school psychology students.
Thank you so much, sir. And to our audience, please, I'll stop now to see if you have any questions about what we've discussed so far. Please feel free. If you'd like, you can unmute yourself and ask your question, or if you feel more comfortable, you can use the chat feature to ask your question. So are there any questions so far, or would you like us to proceed? Bueller, not seeing any. We will proceed. So maybe this would be a great opportunity, Dr. Valley Gray, since you're going to this campus. Would you like to tell us about this brand new campus?
Sure, it's amazing. It's beautiful. It looks just like the picture. You know, the specialist program began on the main campus in 2001, and we quickly moved to Jacksonville. And then we had a cohort in Tampa and then West Palm, something like that. But Tampa is one of the remaining regional campuses that we deliver the school psych specialist program, only the specialist program. That campus recruits for a winter start, whereas the main campus recruits for a fall start. So it's kind of nice if a student kind of makes sense of this process and wants to begin a different time. That's one way to do it. But the programs are identical on the main campus as they are at the Tampa Bay campus. And in fact, you know, as I mentioned, and as Dr. Scheinberg mentioned, many of us will go out to the regional campuses to teach our courses. So with the exception of courses that are offered in a traditional 15-week format, most of the professors who teach are the same ones on the main campus. And, you know, just to streamline this a bit, the specialist program, both programs, are offered in a non-traditional format, evenings, one evening per week, and then one weekend per month, typically. The 15-week courses are for those courses that involve much more repetition and exposure. So things like assessment, the research design class, the statistics class, and then the other courses are offered in a non-traditional 8-week weekend format. So I mentioned before, and Greg, would you mind if I feel like I'm talking to myself. Would you mind if we took this down for a minute and I can look
By
at
all
everything?
means.
There might be
Yes.
some questions that people might have.
Sure.
Yeah. And when I start talking to myself, then we know it's time for like, you're not good. So I'm going to do the review part. But those 8-week courses occur like this, and this might be on a slide moving forward. So I apologize if I'm jumping around. So students receive the syllabus about a month before class begins. Typically what we've been doing is you meet with the instructor via Zoom to kind of review the syllabus, know what's expected, and then off you go to start reading. You might be taking quizzes, you might be creating presentations or writing papers or what have you. Then we meet for an intensive 8-week session. We meet for an intensive weekend. I'm gearing up for the weekend class and I walk away like you're tired afterwards. So we meet Friday evening from 6 to 10 and all day Saturday from 8:30 to 6, all day Sunday from 8:30 to 5:30. And in those sessions, it's very interactive. And in fact, I find that it's much more, there's much more of an opportunity for people to really use the information, because prior to you going to class, you have to understand exactly everything in the textbook because you've been quizzed on it, or you might be doing a presentation on it. So when you get to class, there's a discussion of things. You're not passively sitting there and just taking notes. Instead, it's much more of a conversation and an opportunity to clarify things that you read and to ensure that you understand them. Then and so I think I mentioned I was out in Tampa, the Tampa Bay campus a couple of weeks ago. Then I left the students and they had all of their activities to engage in. And then we're going to meet again this weekend and do the same thing. And so the weekend format, you really get to know people because it's not like 3 hours, you go in and go out. Here you spend the entire weekend with people. It's like being on an airplane, and by the end you're like, everybody knows each other. And it's funny because I really got that sense. You know, I was teaching the doc students the cognitive assessment course, and they were very nervous and shy. And after the weekend course, they like loosened up. They were totally new people. So it's a really nice format, and it really serves to provide cohesiveness for the students too. So the specialist program and the doc program both have those intensive 8-week format courses. And the doc program is a little different, which we'll talk about later.
Which is actually a great segue to the next slide. So we have 2 programs. We have a Doctor of Psychology program that consists of 118 credit hours, and a specialist program that consists of 79 credit hours. And so what I'd like to do is actually continue that discussion, Dr. Valley-Gray. You were talking about sort of the setup for the specialist program. So you used a term that it is really a sort of non-traditional sort of format. And so the typical format is for our working professional to take courses primarily on the weekends and in the evenings. And typically students take 9 credit hours per semester, including the summer. And so would you mind going into more detail concerning the specialist degree? And then I'm also going to maybe pivot over to Jane to talk more about the specialist degree in terms of sort of her role with those students.
Sure. Okay. So yeah, I think we talked about that, you know, the program is offered in both traditional format as well as the non-traditional weekend format. It was really designed for people who are working full time. And so if you're a teacher, a counselor, if you have any kind of full-time job, it's an ideal program because it really involves 1 evening per week, 1 weekend per month, which is super doable if you're working full-time. So that's the 9 credit hours per semester. And I think the key there is including the summer term. So there is really, like, there's no semester where you're off. Students go consecutively until they complete the program, which typically involves 3 years of coursework, 1 year of internship, for a total of 4 years. Now, there's some exceptions. It's my understanding, and Greg, please correct me if I'm wrong, because the Tampa Bay campus starts in the winter, I think it's 3.5 years rather than 4 years. And so there, if I'm not mistaken, there might be a semester or something. There's got to be a way to squish that in, and I can't remember how that happens. And then for students on the Fort Lauderdale campus, there is an option to complete the program in its entirety in 3 years. It's the fast track, and everything's kind of smushed together. So there's 2 years of coursework, 1 year of internship. The internship in the specialist program is 1,200 clock hours, which is equivalent to 2 semesters, fall and winter semester. Full-time position, you apply for those internships across the state. And in fact, you can apply across the country for them. Competitive, but we provide a lot of training. And in fact, Jane is the one who provides that training, that support, and for students to be competitive for that. So I'll turn it over to her.
And I wanted to mention something about the 3-year program. You know, the 4-year program is, as Dr. Valley-Gray said, is totally doable if you're working full-time. We have teachers, we have bankers, we have folks that work 9-to-5 jobs and are able to do this. With a 3-year program, it's not, because there are extra courses each semester. Being a teacher or a banker might not work out as well because it's more compressed. So because all of your coursework would be in 2 years. So the first semester, it's not so bad, but then it builds up where you have some very in-depth courses and you have an extra one. So your job would need not to be full-time and maybe very flexible. So we have had students who have done it, who worked 40 hours, but it was pretty grueling for them. So think about that when you make your choice, because we want you to be able to absorb the information, use it and apply it and understand it, and take advantage of all the opportunities we offer you on campus for students. I noticed that one of you had a question about, you know, what are opportunities for students? And if you are working full time and you're in the 4-year program, we actually have some job opportunities at our Bowdoin School and our preschool, where there would be some tuition remission for 2 courses. After you have been with us, I believe it's six months. We can give you more information about that if you're interested. But you would need to be in the 4-year program because that is during the day. You know, lots of opportunities for students. We would give you both in the specialist and the doctoral program. We have student mentors. We assign you student mentors, faculty mentors, and also an opportunity for an alumni mentor, depending on if that's something that you would be interested in. We have numerous student organizations that you can be a part of. Our school psychology organization is the Graduate Association of School Psychology, and we have committees that you can join. You can be an officer and take on some leadership roles, and we have students that do a little bit the first year, a little bit more the second year, and gradually become leaders in the field. One of our committees is a social justice committee that's been very active this year with students reading books and having discussions and talking about topics and suggesting topics to us. And So there's a lot for you to get involved in if you want to, and depending on how much time you have.
Thank you very much, Jane. So we're gonna go through the curriculum, go through this area quickly. I'm looking at the timer and I wanna be conscious of everyone's time. So on the screen, you'll see sort of the buckets in terms of the courses with a specialist degree. There's general, assessment, intervention, methodology, as well as the practicum and internship required courses. In terms of the admission requirements, very simple on the screen. The first thing you should know is that you would start the process by completing our online application. So we do not have a paper application. It takes around 30 minutes or so to actually complete the application. At the end of that process, you would submit a processing fee of $50. And then that allows you to provide us the documents that are required by the Faculty Admissions Committee. The first one being a statement of professional goals. And this is your way of telling us how this particular program would achieve your professional or personal goals. The next thing that the committee would like to look at would be your CV or your resume. Again, that will give us information concerning your background, your employment, if you have areas of specialization. We would require 2 letters of recommendation. So for individuals who are currently in school, many of them will contact their faculty to have them write or submit letters of recommendation on their behalf. And these letters are actually submitted as part of your application. And the formal process is you would actually indicate who the letters of recommendation should be submitted from, and then they will get an email with a link, and then they will upload the information, and then that would be attached to your application. Additionally, we would require all transcripts from the schools that you've attended that are part of your academic history. So if you attended 2 schools as part of your bachelor's degree, then both schools would submit your official transcripts. Because we recognize we're living in a pandemic, and at the early part of this time, the students did not have the ability to actually take the GRE, or the times were not given so that students would be able to do that. For students who are entering in our winter and our fall, the GRE scores are not required for admission. And I hear some cheering in the background there concerning that. We also have individuals who may not meet some of our criteria, but they have a bachelor's degree in psychology, education, or related field. And so the admissions committee recognizes that individuals are going to come from different backgrounds. And because we want to have a diverse group of individuals, we will actually consider professional or experience as part of the admissions process. And we can go into more detail concerning this area if you so desire. The deadline dates are listed on the screen. And what that means essentially is that all the required documents, all the required steps that I just mentioned must be completed on or before those dates. So those are really the final dates in which you must complete the information. So I'm going to stop here to see if there are any questions. Afterwards, we're going to transition into our doctoral program. Are there any questions?
I have a couple questions.
Sure, go ahead, Stephanie, and I'll stop sharing.
And I'm mainly just interested in the SciS or the specialist degree programs. I might sign off after this, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So my first question was in regards to, I didn't know, I actually am a special educator. That's my original background. And so when I was back in the day, in the 90s, it was considered a critical shortage. And so when I worked in the school system, there was like a loan forgiveness for every year that you worked like in a school that took off so much of your loan. Are they doing that at all for school psychology since it's a critical shortage?
That I don't have the answer to, Stephanie, but I know someone who does. And what I can do is reach out to him and either have him call you, or I can actually get that information and call you.
Okay, that'd be great. Or you can email me. Do you have my email, or I can put it in the chat?
No, we do.
Okay, I was saying if you just email, that would be great.
Awesome. I can tell you that the critical shortage program for school psychology has been suspended for several years now. I think erroneously, but it's very difficult under Board of Education rules to get it back, even though there is a shortage of school psychologists. So while there's not that tuition remission help, it's really easy to get a job as a school psychologist once you've graduated.
Yes, that's
something else I'd like to mention about the SIS program is that with that degree and 2 additional years of supervised experience, it is possible in Florida to be licensed for private practice as a school psychologist.
So you just answered my second question. Thank you.
Good.
He is psychic.
So that was my question. So after you finish the program, you get nationally certified. Is that correct? Or Florida
That's
certified?
correct, because the program, the SIS program and the PsyD program are both NASP approved. And since they're NASP approved, it's basically automatic to get the NCSP once you've graduated.
Okay. And then you would obviously work in the school system. And then at that time, or I guess you don't have to, the key is the supervision, right? You have to be supervised for 2 years.
Well, actually 3 years, but your internship supervision counts.
Oh, so that counts for a year.
Yes.
Okay. And then to get supervised, that has to be with someone, I assume, that's licensed, and there's
correct. It can be a licensed psychologist or a licensed school psychologist.
Oh, okay. Okay, so then that was my next question. And then my last question is, I also heard that there are like companies that will hire you as a school psychologist, and you could like be a contractor and work like in another state. How does that work with licensure? Because you're nationally certified, that's okay? That's my question.
Well, national certification allows for obtaining a certificate from the Department of Education, usually, to work in the public schools in other states. In actually 35 states recognize the NCSP as a route to certification in those states. So that facilitates portability of your degree. But our program is designed so that you would be eligible to get certified by the Department of Education or whatever the credentialing body is in all of the states.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. That's it for me. Thank you
so much, Stephanie. I appreciate it. And I said Mala?
Hello to all. Actually, yeah, Maha. You can call it Maha.
Maha, thank you.
Okay, thank you for good work. Thank you for this session. You know, I'm enjoying. Thank you for everything. I have some question. I got my actually undergraduate or my bachelor in philosophy, and now I want to apply for a PhD in clinical psychology. And yeah, can you explain more details to me? I read some stuff in a Google, you know, but actually it didn't answer exact my questions. And I have some questions in my mind, and I know philosophy is related to psychology, but I want to be sure and I can actually apply for straight from bachelor to PhD, you know, and some sort of.
Thank you so much for the question. And what I will do is I will answer that question, but I would love for us to talk more outside of this area. So I'd like my colleague to actually share my information with you so we can set up a time to go into more detail. But the short answer is a doctorate builds on your undergraduate experience. And what that means is for someone who's interested in a doctoral program in psychology, the committee would be looking for someone with a background in a related field, generally psychology. And if someone does not have that sort of bachelor's degree in psychology, we would be looking for a minimum of 18 credit hours in psychology to be considered for a doctorate in that field. And again, you know, we would work with you in terms of I would work with you in terms of providing you with sort of pathways, depending on what your final destination is. If you're interested in school psychology at the specialist level or the doctoral level. But my colleague just shared with you my information. And so what I'd like to do is meet with you at another time to go into more detail in terms of the application process.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Good talk.
Okay. Are there any other? Veronica?
Yes. Hi. Nice to meet you guys. Nice to meet everybody. I have two questions. I applied back in February for the specialist in psychology program. Do I need to reapply for the deadline, or would everything still be in the system?
Sure. So you can apply up to 1 year ahead of the term in which you'd like to start. So if you applied on, you said for
specialist.
For
I applied to the Tampa Bay campus because I'm living up here now.
Okay. And to join us in January?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. No, you do not have to reapply.
Okay. Fantastic. And then I know that a lot of the professors were saying that they travel between the two campuses. Are all of the courses for Tampa Bay going to be in Tampa Bay, or do we need to also travel? Is that
Dr. Scheinberg, you want to answer that?
You don't have to travel.
Okay.
We go to you. You don't have to come to us.
Okay, fabulous. Because I actually lived in Davie, right next to the Nova campus, so I was like, I'm between the two as well. But yeah, fantastic. It's even better. Thank you.
Awesome, Melissa. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Melissa, you're next.
Hi. Couple questions. One was, once we submit our application, when will we hear about the interview process?
So you're talking about the doctoral program?
No, the specialist.
The specialist degree. So Jane, I'm going to pivot to you.
And Melissa, you're applying to the Tampa Bay campus, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So I'm unclear, and I don't know if Jane knows when the Tampa Bay.
I'll be glad to find out and get back to you.
Oh, sure. So
that's out of our there's a different set of individuals who conduct those interviews.
Okay.
Sure. So what I can tell you, Melissa, is once we have received the documents, they're put in an electronic form, and then they're given to faculty committee to review. And then the faculty will actually, it's a competitive process. So the faculty will determine sort of which applicants or which individuals they'd like to have the conversation with. And then they are then contacted directly to set up an interview with them. And then in terms of your specific, we are happy to actually, depending on sort of where you are in the process, we can look to see where you are in the process and then sort of tell you where you are.
Okay. And then another question I have is about how many applicants do you accept per cohort?
So that will vary. We would like, our balance is we want to have a very sort of diverse group of individuals pursuing this curriculum. And so we don't want it to be too large. Nor do we want it to be too small. And so we sort of make that determination as we go through that process. Historically, for the Tampa campus, we've had around 10 or so individuals who will join us in winter or in January. And so we would like to have that sort of group every year because we think that's more conducive for learning. So it's not a large classroom with 1,000 people in it, nor is it one person. So that's sort of the area or the sort of the number that we look at.
Okay, and then one last question, the internship. I know that there's so many years of the coursework and internship. When does that start on with the Tampa campus? I know we start in January.
So I'm going to pivot to Jane since that's her area.
It would start in the fall of your last year. you start in January, but you end up at the same place as the 3-year program. So you would start, your last year would be starting in the fall, and before that you would be applying to internship, and we would help you with that process, giving you, help you with your CV and give you information about openings and so forth. So it would be that last year, and it would be 1,200 hours, so it's full time.
And it's important to keep in mind that some internships would require that you start a little earlier than the fall. You might have to start in early to mid July sometimes, but most of them will start in late August or September.
Okay. And the winter semester starts when in this coming year? Does anybody know the date?
Hold on.
Yes, it would be January, I believe.
January 3rd.
Yes.
3rd.
Yes.
January 3rd.
January 3rd.
Mm-hmm. And the deadline for you, is on the PowerPoint slide that Greg showed us was November 15th. So obviously the sooner you got your application in, the sooner they would be contacting you to set up something if you're going to have an interview.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Melissa. And I thought I saw another hand, not seeing another hand. Thank you. So we're going to continue talking about our doctoral program now. Exciting, yay. So let's talk about our doc program. So our doctoral program welcomes individuals either with a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. As you can see on the screen, those who hold the bachelor's degree must have completed a minimum of 18 credit hours in psychology. And because the admissions committee wants to make sure that students are a good match to the program, they want applicants to actually have the background, the scholastical background, as well as the interpersonal skills necessary to be an effective practitioner in this area. And so the candidates who completed a minimum of 2 to 3 years of residency in the program, as I mentioned, it's 118 credit hours. Students really have until really 7 years to actually complete the curriculum. And the program is offered on the Fort Lauderdale Davie campus, which is where I am housed. And we welcome students once per year in the fall term. On your screen, this is how our program, our curriculum is actually segmented. And as you can see, many of the individuals on your screen, faculty, teach in these areas, these programs. And so they can go into more detail concerning what either of those areas actually stand for. So questions before I continue, because we're going to go into more about the faculty. Now, one thing I forgot to mention, I'm going to stop sharing here. I didn't go into detail concerning the actual admission requirements for the doc program, and I want to take that time to do it. And I just realized I didn't have it on my wonderful PowerPoint, award-winning PowerPoint, Pulitzer-winning PowerPoint. It was not on there, so bear with me. So
if I can add something while you're doing that, Greg, I'll give you a moment to look at that. I just want to quickly say that, you know, we talked about the specialist program being approximately 3 years plus an internship. The doctoral program, some students complete the program in its entirety in 4 years, 3 years of coursework, 1 year of internship, and others choose to do the 5-year route, 4 years of coursework, 1 year of internship. The internship at the doctoral level is a 2,000-hour full-time internship, so it's a full calendar year rather than in like a fall and winter kind of thing. And our students apply through the same process that you would apply through if you were applying for clinical or counseling internships. The students who choose to do that 5-year route are typically students who want a little more flexibility and more competitiveness, to be honest, to their internship applications. That final year, students spend completing 2 separate applied experiences. One is an elective practicum, where they're in an agency within their community, might be a hospital or a community mental health center or something like that. And then they spend 600 hours completing that required internship in school psychology. And that allows our students to be eligible for the NCSP. And then if they choose to do their internship in a setting outside of the school setting, then they can do so.
Thank you. So what I'd like to do is to introduce you to our website in terms of finding out the admission requirements. And so the first thing I would ask that you do is to visit us online, which is psychology.nova.edu. Very easy address to remember. And then these 3 lines, and I'm not quite sure the origin of the term, but it's actually called a hamburger menu. It doesn't look like a hamburger, but it's a hamburger menu. You'll click on that, and then you'll go down to admissions. When you click on admissions, a menu appears. You'll click on graduate admissions. And because we would like to know more about the admissions for the doctorate in school psychology, we would click that option. And then we will land on the requirements section for this particular program. So as I said, we welcome students once per year in the fall, and we would like students to complete the information that I'm about to talk about as part of the admission requirements. So the first thing you should do or should have is a background in the field. And for that, we would like you to have a bachelor's degree from a regionally accredited institution. And essentially, we would like individuals to have a background in psychology or related field. If you have a bachelor's degree, we'd like you to have a minimum of a 3.0 out of 4.0 in the American model. Or if you're joining us with a master's degree with a minimum of 18 credit hours, you should have a minimum of a 3.5 out of 4.0 in the American model. For this upcoming fall term, we are not requiring the GRE. And so students do not have to submit that as part of the application process. When we get your transcript, we would like to make sure that, again, you have that foundation in psychology. And so we'd like you to have at least a 3 credit hour course in statistics. And so we're going to be looking at your courses to make sure you have that. we would like you to tell us why you're interested in this particular program. And so that is done by you submitting a statement of professional goals. So in no more than 500 words, you would tell us why you're interested in this program and how it's relevant to your career or personal goals, and as well as the sort of personal characteristics that you possess that are relevant and that would help you to be a successful student within the curriculum. I mentioned that you must submit your transcripts. And so for those of you who are completed your curriculum outside the United States, we would actually have you submit your transcripts to a credential evaluation service for them to transcript it so that it looks, it is similar to the American model for us to review. And then you would also submit your CV or your resume. And lastly, 3 letters of recommendation, either from an academic standpoint or from a professional standpoint. So as I mentioned before, we get the entire information. We will then convert it sort of to a electronic sort of folder, and then it's given to our faculty committee for our committee to make the determination. Essentially, they're going to look to make sure that what your history, your background, that it sort of aligns with the curriculum, because we want to make sure that this is a good fit, a good match for you. That's very important for us. So we mentioned that there would be an interview day. And so what will happen is the committee will look at your information. And for those applicants that you would like to continue the conversations with, they will be invited to participate in an interview day. In the pre-COVID-19 world, that meant coming to our campus and sitting down and meeting with our faculty and our students. However, in this timeline, that means that we're interacting with you using this medium, Zoom. So we're going to actually have, as much as we'd like to have you in person, but we're going to mimic that in-person kind of event using Zoom. And then at the end of the process, the faculty will go ahead and make the admissions decision. Now, we do have 2 deadline dates associated with the doctoral program. The first one is January the 8th. And what that means is we would like you to submit all the required documents on or before that date for us to go ahead and make a decision. But we also recognize that many of you are in a field education, for instance, where having a January 8th date might be too early. So we actually have a late deadline date of June the 30th. And so we recognize that. And so you have the ability to go ahead and submit your document on or before that date. So with that said, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And to welcome any other questions you might have concerning the application process.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So if I were to submit my application, like say tomorrow, because I'm already in the process of it, would someone reach out to me earlier than like say January 8th to set up an interview process if that was like needed or anything? Or would that still be like closer to like the January 8th deadline?
So I'm going to have Dr. Valley Gray take the lead on that question.
All right, and which campus are you applying to?
The Fort Lauderdale one.
Okay, we do have an interview date that's been set. And it sounded like you needed a little time. Is it that you are like excited and eager for us to contact you, or are you going out of town or something like that?
I was just thinking because of like applying for housing and everything, because I know it can be kind of hard to find housing because like I'm in Pennsylvania right now. I'm not really local at all.
Uh-huh. Well,
and to confirm,
sorry. And one thing that might be really helpful is talk to some of our students. If you go to the website, did you see the ambassadors that are listed there? I would reach out to one of them because they will be the experts on like how they found housing, what recommendations they have, and they're there to help. But don't worry, like you won't be homeless. Students always have a place. But we do have interview dates that are set up. They're for the, and I think it's for both doc and specialist. It's like early December. Let me see if I can find that. So somebody sing or do something fun while
So the first interview day is Thursday, December the 9th. And then the second one is January the 31st, the Monday.
Thank you.
And December 9th is the clinical interview day. Is that also school psych?
Yes.
Okay.
So did we answer your question, Kat?
Yes, that was very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Other questions? No.
I just have a comment.
Sure.
If you go into the specialist program and you, there can be a way that at that point, before you apply for internship or after you do your internship, if you are so excited about what you're doing and you decide you think you want to apply to the doctoral program, that is an option for you. We only accept students from our specialist program as advanced standing doctoral students, but you do have to make an application. I'm not sure that was mentioned before. So, and some of you are saying, well, I'm not sure whether I want to go through the specialist program or the doc. Well, you don't have to make that decision now. You could do one and continue to work and then apply prior to your internship. And I can tell you more about that if you're interested.
Yeah, and as Jane suggested, if you work on campus, you get the tuition remission. It's a longer route, but it works particularly well for people who are not certain, and they can kind of get a feel as they're going through the program. The doctoral program is only offered on the main campus, but our students who attend our Tampa Bay campus are eligible to apply to our doc program as well.
And I might say that it's pretty cool to be called doctor, like Dr. Cat or something like that. And it's also important to understand that as a graduate of our PsyD program, or the Doctor in Psychology and School Psychology, a person is eligible to apply for licensure in any of the 50 states. And a person is also eligible to be credentialed as a school psychologist to work in the schools in all 50 states.
Well, I have two final slides. And first, I'd like Dr. Cash to talk about the first slide, and then Dr. Scheinberg for the last slide. So let's do here. So Dr. Cash, what is SPACY?
Yeah, what is SPACY? Well, that's a little weird. No, actually, I love acronyms, and I made up that acronym. It stands for School-Related Psychological Assessments and Clinical Interventions. That's our clinic. We have a clinic, a psychology services center in the Maltz building, which is the psychology building on campus. And that consists of approximately 15 faculty-driven subclinics or specialty clinics within the Psychology Services Center. The one that serves school psychology students primarily is the School-Related Psychological Assessments and Clinical Interventions Clinic, which I direct, and Dr. Wharton, another one of our faculty members, is the assistant director of that clinic. That clinic serves all psychology students on the Fort Lauderdale campus, not on the Tampa campus. And it also serves a number of, usually 6 annually, clinical psychology students, 2 interns that can be either clinical or school psychology interns, and 2 postdoctoral residents who can be either clinical or school psychology postdocs. And we offer both comprehensive psychological assessments and the training for those assessments. And we offer interventions of various kinds, evidence-based and modified interventions for anybody whom we deem appropriate for the clinic, which means they have some problem that is related to school in some way.
Thank you, sir. And then the next slide concerns both the University School and the Mailman-Segal Center for Human Development. So Dr. Scheinberg, do you want to tell us how those two entities are part of the curriculum?
Sure. And multiple times today you heard mentions that on a possibility of like working full-time while you're doing like the specialist program. And this is one of the options. So part of our university, what's really nice about NSU is that there's like multiple programs that are part of the university. So one of them is NSU University School, which is a program for children ages 18 months up to 12th grade. So, and that school is within the campus. So this is one of the places where if you are in the specialist program, you can work full-time and get the tuition remission and be part of the program. And there's also the Baldwin Preschool, which is housed in the Mailman-Segal Center. And the Baldwin Preschool is a specialized program for children ages 3 to 5 that have an educational eligibility of autism. And in that program, there are around 150 children ages 3 to 5 with an educational eligibility of autism. So also a lot of our specialist students work in that program while they're completing their degree. So you're not only getting the tuition remission, but you're also getting an amazing hands-on experience in a very unique program. So that's for the specialist programs. For the doctoral students, your first 2 years of practicum experiences are in those two programs. So for the first year, you're housed in the Mailman-Segal Center, and that center has, like I said before, the Baldwin Preschool for that. So that's a program for children who have an educational eligibility of autism, but also the NSU University School Preschool program is housed in the same building. So the first year of practicum experiences are housed there. So students who are in the program engage in a number of different activities, including supporting the classrooms, helping with child studies, so observing children, developing intervention plans, helping with assessments. And then during the second year practicum experience, the students continue at NSU University School, but with the older grade. So elementary school, middle school, and high school. So your training here is very much integrated into those two programs, but also it's good places for to get employment as if you're in the specialist program. So, and if anyone's interested, and that's something you would be, thinking of doing, I'm happy to meet and talk with anyone and talk about specifics of how it works and what people actually do.
Awesome. So we thought that we would spend an hour having this conversation, and now I see that we're at an hour and a half. So I've had fun. I don't know about you, but I've had fun. So please, I'm going to stop right now to see if there are any questions or topics that we have not discussed that you would like us to talk about. And please feel free. It's an intimate group. You can unmute yourself and ask questions, or if you'd like, you can submit your questions in the chat.
Yeah, I do have a question.
Sure.
I'm an international student, and I'm mainly here in the US, but I also go back and forth in Colombia, and I'm also very interested to work there. Mm-hmm. With like graduating with a doctorate, would I be able to be certified to work in other countries, or that's something that I don't know?
I will ask one of our faculty to answer that.
Yeah, I'll try to answer that. Although the answer is, it depends. That's the answer to most questions about psychology. But the fact is that most other countries allow for certification and or licensure to practice privately at the master's level in psychology. Not all countries, and I don't know specifically about Colombia, but most countries in Central and South America do allow for licensure for independent practice at the master's level. So certainly your doctorate or even the specialist degree in school psychology from the United States would be considered for licensure and or certification. And usually the certification internationally for school psychology to work in schools is less stringent than our specialist degree here at Nova Southeastern. So very likely you would qualify either to work in public schools and or to work in private practice in Colombia. And
perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah. But I might suggest that you also reach out to the regulatory bodies in whatever country, state, what have you, to ensure that, because there's no way possibly we could keep track of every country, and nor do we do it for even within the United States. In the United States, like, we have very stringent requirements for licensure in the state of Florida. And so it does make our students quite competitive and ready no matter what state they move to. But if I were in your shoes, I'd want to find out, one, what is required in Colombia, and how do I best prepare myself no matter what program you choose. And then two, I might consult with the International School Psychology Association. It's called ISPA, ISPA.org. And you can sort of get a sense of the variability in the ways psychology and school psychology in particular is conceptualized across the world. So
perfect. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
I noticed that we have a question concerning admissions from, I believe it's Wool or Wooly. The question is it compulsory to have a psychology background to enroll in this program? And I see that Dr. Cash has actually answered that question. So thank you,
Well,
sir.
tried to, but that may not be all of the information that Wole was requesting. There are some requirements about coursework in statistics and psychology, but my understanding is that it's not necessary to have an undergrad psychology major.
So you don't necessarily have to major, but you need 18 credit hours in the doctoral program. In the specialist program, it's psychology or related field, education being one of those areas.
Awesome, thank you. Are there other questions? I now have the Brady Bunch view, so awesome.
Good. We're welcome, Wole. I hope that we're pronouncing your name correctly, and thank you for joining from Nigeria. That's impressive.
Wow, this is an international crowd.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Glad you're here. Glad you're here from wherever you, all of you, from wherever you are joining us.
Actually,
we value diversity here at NSU.
And Maha, where are you from?
Yeah, Iran, Tehran.
Oh my goodness! Good. Wow.
Yes.
Your English is amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for the time you put and the sharing the stuff you do. Thank you for.
And I know that you mentioned the PhD in clinical psychology, Maya.
Yeah,
I hope that you will consider school psychology. I think you'd be great at it.
Really, actually, I have some experience in it. Before the pandemic, I was a kids, actually, kindergarten teacher.
Oh
wow! And yes, it's a kind of new style of techniques of teaching to kids in Iran, in Tehran, and some good schools. And I was one of the teacher, but the pandemic came and all, this got. But I have some experience with kids, and I was very great in it. And I love kids, but because of my background actually I had because of I lost my brother, I went to a psychiatrist, and I started almost 5 years, I'm starting to reading about psychology, and I'm a fan of Van der Kolk, Beza Van der Kolk, Body Keeps the Score. Actually, I read that book, and I started the psychology based on that book, and I love trauma.
Awesome. So I will reach out to you afterwards to set up a time that we can talk. And so you'll be getting an email from me shortly. Awesome.
Okay, sure. Thank you. I appreciate it.
So with that said, I just want to thank you so much for joining us. Like the airlines say, you had the choice concerning how to fly. So I'm glad you decided to fly with us. So on behalf of this amazing group of individuals I get to work with, thank you so much for joining us. And I look forward to continuing the conversation with each of you. So
thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Good to see you. Nice to meet you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.